Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Turf Talk Down Under. I'm Angie, as you know, and I have a very special guest with me today. Today we have Carole Ann who's come to join us. How you going, Carole Ann?
I'm doing really well, actually, Angie. Yeah, on a high.
Yes. Well, for those who don't know, Carole Ann had her picture in the paper this week. A very, very nice picture of her looking quietly defiant ahead of a very important article. Would you like to tell everyone about it?
Yes, the article was in The Age, and it's about a group of us, Lesbian Action Group, who have put in an application for an exemption to be able to hold lesbian events for same-sex attracted lesbians. I mean, lesbians who are female. I'm just going to show my T-shirt here. Oh, it's back to front, but it says same-sex attraction is a thing.
Yes.
So our exemption is to the Australian Human Rights Commission, and it's actually ridiculous that we have to apply for an exemption to run a lesbian event, but we do. We've had 3 decades of experiencing mainly trans trying to come to our events, and if we say no, they have in the past taken us before the Equal Opportunity Tribunal. So we thought, well, we'd give it another go. We'd try and bring it out into the open. How ridiculous it is that lesbians need an exemption to hold our own events for lesbians only.
It is ridiculous. Even, like, men change the dynamic of any group, and I can't imagine a group more changed by a man walking into it than a room full of lesbians. It's just an absolutely ridiculous idea that any man has a right to be in your events.
Yeah. Well, it is, and many of our events over the last couple of decades have been live-in camps. So that's even more a no. No, you're not coming to a live-in camp with other lesbians. And sometimes we didn't even know whether they were for real, these people, whether they really wanted to come to our camps. And I suspect not. I suspect they didn't really want to come, but they just wanted us not to be able to gather on.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep. They do it. They do it out of spite.
Yeah. And so they took us to the tribunal, and we had to go all through all that hoo-ha, and it's just really wearing. So in the end, we decided, okay, we'll just go underground. We won't publicise our events. We'll just have our own networks and do it ourselves. But that's, of course, meant that we have had to be underground. We've had to be secret about it.
That's what we're doing. Sorry?
Well, that has all sorts of implications about it's a secret society, and it shouldn't have to be a secret society to hold events and to say to other lesbians who aren't part of that secret society, come along and enjoy. Yeah.
There are so few opportunities for young women to meet other lesbians now. The word lesbian is rarely used in the massive acronym.
I know. I mean, what is it doing there if at the Pride Centre, which is supposed to be for, inclusive of all of us, but us lesbians aren't allowed to have an event there unless they let everybody else in. We're not allowed to say this is an event for lesbians. We have to say this is a lesbian event, but anybody and everybody can come along if they want to.
No.
How ludicrous is that? It's, you know, I mean, in some instances that might be appropriate. We might want that and welcome that if we were going to showcase lesbian culture to everybody out there. But times when we want to have our own talks and network amongst ourselves and discuss all sorts of issues specifically to do with lesbians, we should be allowed to do that without risking being taken to court. And the Pride Centre is a publicly funded, multi-million-dollar venue for lesbians and others in the alphabet soup, and yet they are excluding a whole community of lesbians. How does that make sense? Doesn't.
Yeah, heterosexual asexuals would be allowed to have a meeting there.
Yeah.
And lesbians wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. But I've noticed it's not just, all women's services are now underground.
Yeah.
And I think we're fortunate that so many of the second wave feminists who fought for our rights the first time and started these groups, which most of them were only started like 50 years ago. In all of human history, most of the exclusively women-only crisis services that we take for granted were started less than 100 years ago and were started usually by lesbians.
Well,
and we've all gone back underground.
They were.
For the same reasons, like domestic violence services are now underground, and we have safety risks associated with that. So we're harbouring women in our own homes rather than subject them to, services that are mixed sex because they're traumatised, or to services that will call the perpetrators of the violence towards them she. So we're harbouring them in our own homes, in our own community, and that is not safe.
No, and that's how it all started out way back then was, it was all done on a shoestring. It was done privately. And then for 5 seconds we thought things were improving because they were, government funded and recognised as necessary. And now it's all gone downhill again.
Something I noticed when the government funding started was that all the male CEOs for female-only services started as well. I'm really annoyed at the moment that my menopause clinic, the only menopause clinic in Melbourne, in all of Victoria, all those gender clinics, but one menopause clinic now has a male director.
They just can't help themselves, can they? They just cannot keep out. They have to have the last say. They have to be the boss. They have to be in power. They just,
The interesting thing about you applying to the Human Rights Council for an exemption on the basis of sex is that it kind of fits in with Sal Grover's case, except that the Human Rights Council is defending the trans rights activist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So does that concern you? Does that worry you? Or do you think it's more indicative of how institutionally captured everything is?
Yeah, I've been in touch with Sal, and she's on board because it does fit in. Coincidentally, it fits in with her fight as well. And yeah, look, it's anybody's guess, really, whether we're going to win this or not. And I really wouldn't want to take any bets on it personally.
Me either.
But what we want to do is raise awareness about it, publicise it as much as possible, get people talking about it, and hopefully some people will come on board and say, well, that doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right that lesbians can't have their own gatherings and camps and events without being expected to have everybody and their dog come along as well. Whether we win, I mean, we all really secretly in our hearts hope that we can win, but we also are being realistic. And yes, the word is that the Australian Human Rights Commission are captured themselves. So
Sal's going to need at least $500,000 to take this all the way to the High Court. So, you know, that is a frightening thought, that the other side is represented by the government and we have to fundraise just to be recognised as distinctive from men.
Well, we have no financial backing whatsoever, so we're going to take it as far as we can take it, but we're a volunteer bunch and we don't have money, so we'll just get what we can out of it. Luckily, we have found a way over the last 3 decades of gathering and having our own events and being underground, and we do have quite a strong community underground. And so whether we win or not, that will continue. But we shouldn't have to be underground like that.
No.
That was stuff that happened back, you know, before the 60s and 50s and whatever, that homosexuals had to go underground and meet in secret. And they call this a progressive movement, the LGBTQIA plus whatever, as a progressive movement, but it, from my viewpoint, it's not progressive at all. It's taking us way back, you know, into the last century and beyond. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Well, this morning I saw an ABC article talking about how queer the Matildas were and what a great thing that was to normalising queer visibility. And underneath in the comments, there was Danny Laidley declaring himself a transgender lesbian. So the only time I see the word lesbian used by the ABC is when it's men describing themselves. So they've once again reduced a word that has meaning into a porn trope, basically. It just makes me so angry. And, of course, the ABC, full of comments from women saying, you know, what about lesbians? What's wrong with the word lesbian? Why won't you use it? And deadly silence.
It's the same with the word woman, isn't it?
Yeah.
The only time that we're allowed to say it is when we say trans women are women.
Oh.
Not me,
No.
but, you know, that is the only time we're allowed to say women.
So your group has made your submission. So what's the time frame? Like, when do you expect to hear something back?
Well, the process seems to be that it's up on the website, the Australian Human Rights Commission website. So if anyone wants to have a look at it, they can go to the website. Our application is up there, and they allow letters of support, which women can write, and men can write letters of support to us, and the due date for that is next Tuesday, the 29th of August. So after they've got all those letters and what have you in, they then deliberate. This is my understanding anyway. They then deliberate, and they might call us in to give further information. They might call us in to speak to the opposition's case, which I am sure is gathering momentum as we speak.
Yes, they have mobilised.
They have mobilised, absolutely. Well, the extension to the letters due date was not put in by us, because it was originally the 25th and now it's the 29th. So my assumption is that the opposition lobby have asked for that extension for for letters. So yes, they will be gathering all the big guns. Yeah, and that's what we'll be up against. So then after we've had our time to speak, then they take all the information away and make a decision. Now, because we asked for the exemption so that we could hold an event to celebrate International Lesbian Day, which is October the 8th, we actually booked the Pride Centre for the 15th, although they've now turned us down because we're exclusionary.
Oh.
So that's a whole other story, the Pride Centre.
Yeah, I'll turn up to a trans event and see if I get in.
So yes, we think that perhaps they're fast tracking it a bit so that we can have an answer before International Lesbian Day, but who knows with these things, court things, it might drag on, it might not, I don't know.
Yeah, so anyone who's watching, please make a submission.
Absolutely. It's easy. It doesn't
Mm.
have to be sophisticated or long or complicated or legal speak or anything. It just has to be a letter saying, I support the Lesbian Action Group in their application for an exemption. And then if you want to give some examples why you support that's fine. But please do. Please do.
Yes. Amazing. Best of luck. Best of luck. Like, we've all got our fingers and toes and everything crossed. I think that was the biggest news this week for me, and it's been a week of big news. But you're involved in a few other things. Tell us briefly about the Turbine Network.
Yes, the Turbine Network. Well, that came out of the Melbourne rally earlier in the year, in March, where Let Women Speak tried to speak on the steps of Parliament, as you know, Angie, and got hijacked completely by all sorts of groups. And that was quite a shock to all of us, I think. And after that event, there was a Terf lunch in Castlemaine for some of the women who'd been to that rally, just to debrief and regroup. And so at that Terf lunch, there was quite a few of us, and I took women's email addresses and started up the Turbine Network. And it has grown from about 20 women on it to almost 90 now. It's just an informal email network, just to keep in contact and to let each other know what's going on and to support each other. It's been really good.
It's much needed. Like, there's a lot of residual trauma after what happened.
Absolutely, and I think that many of us are only just starting to come out of that, to realise the shock that it was. It was so violent, and not just on the day, but in the aftermath of it. It was so shocking and violent and hard to believe, the lies that were told, and the misrepresentation that, so many people were believing because that's what they saw in the media.
Yes.
Like, I've had conversations with my daughter and granddaughter, and that's what they saw and that's what they believe. And I said, do you really think that I'm a Nazi? Well,
yeah. See, I've had my former anti-fascist friends who have supported me through court action against an actual Nazi. People who know in their core that I am not a Nazi, who I consider my close friends. I've had them say to me that working with Kelly J was the last straw, and that she's a Nazi and therefore I worked with a Nazi, so I'm dead to them. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding. You know me. And you think I didn't research who I was working with, that I didn't look into all of the allegations against her and find them unfounded, before I made the decision to get involved.
Mm.
You really think I'm that stupid?
Mm.
You know, so good riddance to them. But it was so shocking to me that people who I considered to have brains and awareness, and these are all people who are like, trans women are women in public, but behind closed doors go, nah, don't believe any of it. They're you know, now publicly condemning me and carrying on, you know, and I'm like, no, you know, and that's part of the trauma though. So it was both what happened on the day, the shock of the Nazis actually being there, the fact they were actual Nazis when we thought they were anti-fascist because of how they were dressed and because they were let behind the police line.
Yeah.
Then there was the gaslighting afterwards by Daniel Andrews. Then the outright defamation by John Pizzuto, which was bad enough because they were just baseless. And then the worst thing after that was the mainstream media perpetuating it. And beyond that, as if that wasn't bad enough, was that targeted harassment of women involved who have been threatened, doxxed, shamed, told never to go into the city or they're going to get killed or punched or have soup thrown on them. I've had so much offered from soup. I could cure world hunger with all the soup I've been offered in the last few months. But, you know, and then there's also the guilt of what happened to people in cities after Melbourne, like what happened in Hobart and Canberra, because the media started calling Kelly-Jay a Nazi, and then the violent counter-protesting got even worse. And then, of course, what happened into New Zealand. So we've not just had a couple of traumatic incidents. It's been a compounding trauma of events. Yeah. And, you know, I was shocked because and afterwards I was like shocked and whatever, because it's just so ridiculous to me. And, you know, I had to go and have therapy, and I've been having ongoing therapy as a consequence directly of that event. And, you know, I'm pretty resilient.
Yeah.
So if it's affecting me.
Here's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be going over to Auckland to be at the Let Women Speak event outside the courthouse in Auckland, because I think that is absolutely awesome that Kelly-Jay has the guts, the bravery, and the audacity and the defiance to go back to that country and to be at the trial of that idiot that assaulted her. And if she can do that, then I can be just as defiant and go and support her. So yeah, it's just, I mean, it was shocking in Melbourne, and as you say, the aftermath. But I think it has strengthened the resolve in so many women.
Yes.
And it's not put up with this bullshit, to see it for what it's worth. It's bullying, it's terrorism, it's intimidation, and we can either buckle under it or we can step up and say no. No. And I was talking to you earlier, Angie, about I mean, I'm an older woman. I'm 74, and in my activism throughout my years, I've when I was younger, I always thought, oh, when I get older and I don't have anything else to lose, and I don't give a shit anymore about, you know, what my kids think or what my job thinks or whatever, I always thought, well, I'm going to become a guerrilla granny. I'm just going to go out there and I'm just going to do the activism stuff and not give a shit. And that's where I'm at the moment. I'm a guerrilla granny. I'm just like, I'm out there. I'm lucky enough to have my health still. So I can get out there and I can just stand up to them and say, no, enough's enough. No, not having it. Just not having it. Go away. And, you know, keep coming at us, but no. You know, what can you do to me? Really, what can you do to me? You could actually, you know, the end thing is kill me. I don't care. I'm at the end of my life anyway. I really do not care. So, you know.
That's all they got left, though. Like, all they can do to me is they can take my Twitter account, which they will do, that, you know, the hate speech stuff's going to take our Twitter accounts, right? So they can take my Twitter account, they can attack me physically, or they can kill me. That's all that's left. I've got nothing to lose. They've done everything else that they can do to hurt me. And if they go after my kids, then, you know, they've got to deal with the consequences of that. But you know, like, it is such a freeing feeling. You know, I would have worried about what people thought of me when I was a bit younger, you know, and I really don't give a damn.
I don't. I mean, my own daughter and granddaughter, who I live with, and I co-parented my granddaughter. She's 14 now, and she's the love of my life. But both of them think that I'm a mad old witch or something. I don't know.
Oh,
And
you're not.
No, well, I know I'm not. I know I'm right. I know that they're the ones who need to rethink. So I'm confident in myself, and I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid of what they think of me or what anyone else thinks of me. And I'm not saying everybody has the privilege of being in that position. No. I'm not saying that at all. But I am in that privileged position, and I'm going to make the most of it. So,
and we need you. Like, you know, part of me is like sad that you've had to sort of, you've done all your hard work in your younger life, and you put your feet up and had a rest, right?
Well,
and
I did, actually.
Yeah.
I did. I mean, a couple of years ago, because my granddaughter became a teenager, and I'd always said I'm leaving home when she becomes a teenager. So I found myself a part-time place I can come to, and I came down to the beach, and with my chickens and my dog and my cat and my garden, and I put my feet up and thought, yeah, I've done my bit.
Yep.
But after the Melbourne rally, it was like, no, this is too important. I got to come out of my retirement, get my feet on the ground again, and get into it. It's the most important thing for women that has been an issue for many, well, you know, since we got the vote, really, and abortion rights. This is the next big thing, and I'm not going to be around for all of it, but for the time I'm around, I'm bloody well going to fight it.
Same. Bastards. I'm going to go out swinging. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I'm so grateful that you're here, though, you know, because we're all tired, and you've brought a new energy, particularly here in Melbourne, because we were hit hard by what happened as a movement. You know, like, we've noticed that morale's been slipping. There's been a bit of infighting. There's been all of these signs of fatigue and stress. And then, you know, with some of the things that you've been doing, you've given us a little bit of hope again. So we're so grateful to have you back, you know, because you never left. And this is the sad thing. Like, lesbians were the canary in the coal mine who knew that these men were trying to infiltrate female spaces. But my big argument about this whole ideology is people don't care until it affects them. It's an abstract concept, but when you're in a change room with your kids and a man walks in and drops your stacks, then you care. Yeah, you know, you don't. It's when it's your intimate female-only space he's trying to get into, then you care. Yeah. So more and more women are being impacted, and we're suddenly realising that this has been happening to lesbians for 30 years, and we didn't realise. And so, you know, there's a bit of, you know, we're sorry. Like, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. We didn't realise how bad it was. I only really figured it out when I saw Bronwyn Winter on TV in 2017. And that's when I realised that lesbians had been significantly impacted by this. And I was shocked the other day speaking to Helen Daintree to know that all lesbian events have gone underground. I thought they still would have had some publicly advertised events, but this one in Brisbane next month is the first one in nearly 3 decades. I mean, that is ridiculous. And we didn't realise, because unless you're a lesbian, it doesn't affect you. So I think more and more people, because of this massive explosion of people who are identifying as trans, more and more workplaces are making trans officers or inclusion officers, and it's impacting more and more people. More people care, and more people are coming over and saying, oh, well, hang on, the TERFs have been talking about this. What are they actually talking about? And, you know, momentum is building. And I think the other side knows that, and that's why they're throwing everything they can at us. And that's why the media itself is in a panic and still trying to silence us so heavily, trying to no platform us and, you know, give misinformation to the public, because that ideology won't withstand public scrutiny at all.
Credit where credit's due. That article in The Age about our exemption was done very fairly. I mean, there were a few things that, you know, the headline grabbing thing of anti-trans.
Oh, I know. Oh.
I was actually expecting to be ambushed by it, and I was very wary. But I thought, oh, well, what the heck? It's The Age, you know, see what they have to say. And I was very pleased with how they portrayed it. I think they were fair. So maybe, you know, maybe we might get some more media attention on this one. I don't know that the lesbian angle has been exposed so much.
No.
You know, the women's one has, and the sex-based rights, but the lesbian one hasn't. And the trans hide behind the alphabet soup stuff.
Yeah.
And for us as lesbians to come out and say, no, you are excluding us, a whole community of people that you say you're championing. You're not. You're not. So maybe that different angle might actually bring a few people on side. I don't know.
Yeah. Although they have, you know, the ABC has dragged out a lot of, literally dragged out a lot of, you know, lesbian commentators. Like it was Pat Cavalis who did that Four Corners story, disappointingly.
Disgusting.
Yeah, you know. So, and they've got plenty of sort of ACON ambassadors out there promoting the acronym, even though it's harmful to lesbians, particularly young lesbians.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's lots of lesbians who are on board with the trans, unfortunately. And you know, they can be some of the hardest critics, really, of us who don't want to be. You know, they say, well, we go along to all the events and invite everybody and their dog along, and so why can't you? Well, I'm happy that they have their events that they can go along to. I'm really pleased for them. You know, I don't want anyone to not have events that they can go along to, and that includes us.
Yep.
We have our own culture, and we want to be able to celebrate that culture and build on that culture and create more things about that culture, and we want the right to do that. So why exclude us? What is so threatening about us doing that, really? That's
it. Why are they so intimidated by you?
Exactly.
It made me sad. I've got a young friend who's a lesbian, and she's saying, you know, it's hard enough dating when you're a TERF. But then she said, and she realizes that in 5-10 years' time, all the women that she meets won't have breasts, and she's going to have to deal with a generation of women who have post-traumatic stress from going through gender transition and who have a physical, you know, who are physically altered. And, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but she said, you know, she's not attracted to hairy women that don't have no breasts, you know, so it's made things like triply hard for her. And she's only young, you know. It's just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's one of the projects that we have on the go with the Lesbian Action Group, actually, is trying to reach out to young lesbians who do want a lesbian only space. But
so if you're watching, which I know some of you are,
absolutely. yeah, reach out to us, because we have experience in organising these things, and we you know, that's what we want to do, is what's happening to young lesbians, either by transitioning, conversion therapy, or by peer pressure, or by brainwashing in schools.
Yeah.
It's just tragic, absolutely tragic. And I do know that there are young lesbians out there who don't buy into the whole thing.
Yeah.
But they're too scared to speak up.
Yep.
Yeah. So if there are any who want to reach out, and we can help you start some stuff up. We're really good at that.
Yep.
Reach out to us. Lesbian
you can
Action Group.
You can contact Lesbian Action Group, or anything that Carole's talked about today. If you want to contact us at Turf Talk Down Under, we can give you some contact details. So, wow. On that note, we've been talking for a while. I could talk to you all day, because I'd love to hear more about your early activism. It was, you know, like, I came into feminism at the end of the second wave, and, you know, they were optimistic and pretty wild times, and they were great. And I love listening to women who are around that little bit longer than me, who were like, you know, adults, the adults that won our rights, and you were part of that generation, you know. Yeah, and I'm really grateful to have you back here fighting with us.
Well, I'm actually, retirement can be a bit boring. Yeah. Even though I love my garden and my my animals, but this is quite exhilarating to be back on the activist front again. Yeah, most of my earlier activism was as a lesbian activist, creating lesbian culture, and I've organised so many events and festivals and conferences and camps and dances and market days. In the heyday, it was just so exhilarating. We just was so exciting. Yeah, but
and meant
yeah, it was. We really did think that, you know, times had changed. Well, they've changed back again, unfortunately. So we've got to start again.
Yeah. Well, we won our rights last time. We're going to win them back again.
Absolutely.
Guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wouldn't look. I'm you know, I'm a quitter, right, in some things, and I wouldn't be involved in this if I didn't think that we would win. I wouldn't be putting so much energy and risking so much, and potentially risking my kids' future, if I didn't think that this fight was worth it.
Look, I mean, one of the wonderful things these days is that we do have role models. And whenever I'm feeling defeated and what am I doing this for? I mean, I think of the suffragettes.
Yeah.
You know, the stuff that they went through, and the commitment that they had to have to get us the vote. And then I think of some of the women during the 70s who, you know, put themselves out there on the streets and got all sorts of threats and violence against them. And yet they kept going, and they won us, you know, the right to equal pay, the right to childcare allowances, the right to get a mortgage in your own name. When I first went for a mortgage way back in the 70s, I wasn't allowed to, even though I was the breadwinner, I was a teacher, I wasn't allowed to get a mortgage. So people take these things for granted.
They do.
There were women before us and during my time who have put their lives and their livelihoods on the line to fight for all this stuff. So it's the least we can do is just keep fighting. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, Carole, well, we'd better go. It was lovely to hear you today.
It was a pleasure.
if yeah, get your submissions in, get your support for this exemption in, please. Yes, if you like what we do here at Turf Talk Down Under, like, share, subscribe, chuck $3 a month into the Patreon, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Carole Ann. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.